Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on just the state of DC. Not Washington DC, but DC Comics and what's happening on the movie side, as well as, I guess more importantly for this one, the TV side, though it really stretches out for the whole thing. So of course, as we know, we have this new age of DC, if you want to put it. The new age is coming. We're going from the Jurassic into the Triassic. Was that the right way around? Whichever way it is, we're going from there. Some things are getting extinct, and we're moving into a new age and a new evolution, if you want to put it. Hopefully it's an evolution in regards to at least consistency and things moving forward. Now, of course, this is under James Gunn. We are starting now, I guess, because Superman Legacy has started filming, but in regards to stuff coming out, Creature Commandos will come out by the end of the year. Obviously, that's not meant to be this big launch. I don't know how many people are going to watch it. I'll be watching. I'm sure most of you will be watching it, but I don't know how many of the general public are going to be watching it. But it's going to be Superman Legacy middle of next year, where things really kick off, and hopefully kick off in a good way. Now, this video isn't about, theorizing how this new universe is going to go and everything like that, though we may touch upon that later in the video or towards the end as like a final talking point. It's more about what came before and its effect on what's coming next, both in a good and a bad way. So over the past, I think the original tweet came out I think it was about 2 weeks ago. I want to say 2 weeks ago. And I'm not going to put the thing up, the tweet up. I'm not going to flame the dude that put it up, or the person, whether a dude or whatever. I'm not going to put that up on the screen just because I don't want to attract any sort of hate and everything like that. But the tweet was interesting in a way in which it sort of triggered a conversation. Now, the dude sort of got flamed because it came across, I think, just at a surface level as a bit of a dumb tweet. And just to sort of preface what the tweet was, I sort of wrote roughly what it was down. It's sort of about how the CW DC shows, like the DC TV shows on the CW, or effectively the Arrowverse, saturated the market for DC, and that's what led to, I guess, it being a massive negative for DC at the time, and also going forward now, and just an overall interest for this upcoming DC universe, and also the recency, I guess post-COVID for DC things, because nothing was really profitable, especially on the movie side of things. And to be honest, I thought what the guy was saying was not what a lot of people were replying with, because a lot of people were replying, no, it's the movie's fault. And we'll touch upon the movies, that came before and obviously how they affected it. But the guy wasn't necessarily saying it's not the movies either. He was just saying it's also this is another angle to look at that adds to the movie problem, where people got disinterested in the movie, so they didn't keep showing up and everything like that. But here's another thing, and that's this oversaturation with the the TV shows, more specifically the Arrowverse. Of course, there were shows like Gotham, Titans, Doom Patrol and stuff like that, but if you really said DC TV to someone, they would have referenced the Arrowverse. But is this true? And if so, or if not, why? Why is it the true or not true? Or why is it the truth or not the truth? That's probably the best way to put it. And of course, you can let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions on this. Do you agree with that statement, where the CW DC TV shows or the Arrowverse just saturated the market and sort of led people to not having an interest in anything really DC going forward? Or do you think the opposite? Just let me know your opinions in the comment section down below, and also your reactions to mine, because I'd just be very curious to hear what people are thinking. And what's my answer to this? I think the answer is no. I don't think it. I don't agree with what the guy is saying. I'll be like, well, hold on, what a surprise! A page of the Arrowverse shill. But I'm going to give my explanations why. And it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not talking about quality. I'm just more talking about his point on the saturation side of things. And my answer to this as to why I said no is pretty simple, and this is because you didn't have to watch all the shows to understand everything. You could only watch one, whether that was The Flash, or you could have just been Batwoman. There was a lot of people that just watched Batwoman. There was a lot of people that just watched Supergirl, and there's a lot of people that just watched, here's the big one, probably Legends of Tomorrow. So many people just watched Legends of Tomorrow. Obviously, it wasn't the highest rated show, but a lot of that audience that just watched Legends didn't watch a lot of the other shows. They might have watched one other, and I saw there was a lot of crossover with Supergirl, for example, but of course there were a lot of, there was a decent crossover with The Flash as well, because of the sci-fi element, I guess you could say, of Legends of Tomorrow, and Flash was very sci-fi at the same time. So because of this, I don't believe that adds into the saturation. It's not like, because a lot of people brought this up as well, it's not like with the MCU where that plays into the saturation because there's so much stuff, but you have to watch all those pretty much most of those things to really follow what they're doing. With the Arrowverse and what they're doing on the CWDC shows, that wasn't the case. You could just watch one and then that was it. It wasn't like you're watching, whether it was Flash or even Batwoman or Legends, and then they'd randomly just bring up this plot point from this other show that was a really important thing for what was happening here, or if you didn't know it, you were lost. That was never really the case. The only time that ever really happened, well, there's actually one. There's one thing, and that was very late into the Arrowverse. Like, in some cases, it was some shows last seasons, like Supergirl, I think it was their last season, and that was the Diggle thing. Remember there was that Diggle thing where he was on Legends, but that was like disconnected, but there was like that storyline like Batwoman, Supergirl, and the Flash, where he was sort of like dealing with the after effects of that green box, or the Green Lantern thing, if you want to put it. That was the only thing, and even then, it was such a minor thing. At the end of the day, it didn't really matter. But the only thing that ever came around where you might be watching technically an episode of Supergirl, but it wasn't really an episode of Supergirl, and they might bring up a storyline from the Flash, but it also isn't a main thing. It's just something that's referenced and maybe is the point of one scene, is the crossovers. And even then, later on, they stopped doing that because I think they realized, well, hold on, we probably shouldn't be bringing storylines in from other shows to be a decent factor in these crossovers. So, for example, one of the big ones was, I think in the second crossover they did, the Legend of Tomorrow setup, they had like Olicity Drama carry on from Arrow, and like, you know, if you would, a lot of people, you know, remember that was like the Flash's second season, so there was like a lot more people watching Flash than Arrow. They're jumping into the crossover, and then you're getting all this drama from Arrow. And that was also in Arrow season 4, which is, we all know, is the worst season of Arrow. So you're pretty much taking a storyline from a really bad season and bringing it into the crossover, and people were lost and didn't care. That was an example there. The only other example, like a major one I remember, was in the Invasion one, and there was a couple different things. They tapped into the Savitar thing randomly, and a lot of people were sort of lost on what that whole thing was if they weren't watching the Flash, and the Cisco annoyed post Flashpoint sort of thing, when he was still annoyed that Barry changed the timeline, now his brother's dead, everything like that. So those were two examples there from the second and third crossover, and they didn't really do it after that. They sort of stopped that because I think they realized, well, hold on, we can't just keep bringing this in, and sort of playing into that thing where, all of a sudden you have to watch all the shows to understand, which would have played into that saturation factor if it was going to be there. Now, of course, I'm not going to avoid the elephant in the room because I sort of mentioned it before and I thought I'd bring it up. Of course, quality can be an issue. If you aren't enjoying a show anymore, you stop watching it. But as I said, it lines up with that point I was just bringing up, where you don't have to watch all the shows to understand it, so it doesn't play into that saturation factor. Now, you could argue just these shows being available on the market is an oversaturation, which I can completely understand, but that's the case with everything. I mean, you can still argue that it's still going to be the case anyway with what's coming up with James Gunn's DCU. We're arguably going to be getting, you know, like 2 to 3 films with maybe like 2 to 3 TV series per year, along with the Marvel stuff, along with any other thing that's there, and really anything like sort of like that fits into that genre as well, where, you know, if you're doing space stuff, then it's all of a sudden it's falling in with sci-fi, or it's like whatever it might be. There's going to be that same thing with the oversaturation thing, so you can't say that it's a thing there where you didn't have to watch it, but then it's not going to be an issue going forward when you sort of have to watch it with the DC stuff, especially when James Gunn has said that it's the largest story, you know. Well, they're going for the largest story, I think, or the grandest story, whichever way the terminology is, over all these different mediums of film, TV, even video games and everything like that. So I don't think the oversaturation thing is there. But the larger question, which I might have made as this title, I don't know what the title of the video is going to be. I sort of wrote down the question, like, did CW do damage to the DC brand? But I might call it, like, did the Arrowverse? I don't know what the title's going to be. That's for future me to worry about. I think the answer is semi. And I think overall, just the whole DC thing was mismanaged in regards to, I guess, just the creative liberties of what things could do. Like, there was always like the war, I guess you could say, that people had between the TV and film side. I always enjoyed both, but there was always this thing where, you know, the DC movies suck, the DC TV supreme, or the other way around. Like, there's people that hate the Arrowverse for whatever reason it might be, and it might just be because of allegiance to the film thing, or they just prefer, you know, watching movies over watching TV shows, and you know the length of that and everything like that. But I'm a big believer that the DC TV stuff, not just the Arrowverse, but I think, like, to be honest, even though I didn't really like Titans as a show, even Titans, like, people really like Titans, even though I'm not the biggest fan, just in like shows like Gotham, for example, and things like that. I think that kept DC going in regards to any sort of like consistent relevance, because you got those shows every single year. Even if, as I said, even if you only watched one, even if you only watched Legends, or you only watched Supergirl, or you only watched Flash, or you only watched Titans, or you only watched Krypton, or whatever it was, or you only watched Stargirl, whatever it is, you had those shows for 10, 13, 22, 23 episodes a season, depending on what the show was, obviously, and it allowed that consistent thing where that was you're watching it. But with the film side, if you were dropped off, you were dropped off. And that sort of was shown, like, where, you know, after, like, I mean, really 2018, so what, 5 years ago, technically, because Aquaman, like, there weren't really that many movies that were profitable. Like, Shazam was profitable, and then, what, Joker? Like, that's pretty much it. Like, all the other movies didn't do that because people just sort of, well, I'm not tapped into it, I'm not connected, and everything like that. And that's the hard thing when you do a connected universe, if you're making it that you sort of, like, you have all these different properties and you're sort of building up that you're meant to go watch each one or whatever it is. As soon as someone's, like, disconnected, they're disconnected, not just going to go and watch one show, like I said before, whether it is Gotham or Flash or whatever it might be. So that's probably an issue for DC going forward, is trying to get people back into that. And look, I know people want to flame on the DCEU, and I think DCEU is clearly the biggest issue around it. And it doesn't I don't think it's necessarily like in regards to each individual movie. Like, it's not going, oh, you know, this movie's to blame or that movie is to blame for why it didn't work. It's just that, you know, when you need some sort of connection there, while also not making it like the whole thing with like homework where you have to watch it. Sure, the MCU was successful because of it, but it's sort of feeling, you know, the negatives of that side right now, where people have missed one thing, or they're just not interested in following anymore, and they're more waiting for this specific movie to come out, and they're just going to watch that movie or whatever it might be. But that's the most interesting thing going into this new period that we have now, this next, well, you want to say at least 5 years. So, like, what, Superman Legacy comes out in 2025, so probably 2025 to 2030. That whole period of what James Gunn is planning and how DC can potentially be revived, though there is the concern that they're just going to play completely into what people don't want, and that is to go for saturated market where we have to watch all these things. And, like, when there's different genres and stuff, people might not be interested. Like, someone could be really excited for, you know, Superman Legacy and maybe even Booster Gold or whatever it is, but then they have no interest in Swamp Thing, or maybe that Wonder Woman prequel show, or maybe even Lanterns. Maybe they don't like sci-fi space stuff, and then all of a sudden there's a bit of a disconnect there. And does that have a domino effect? Because that's the biggest issue, is the domino effect. Might be a small issue, but then it's like and then it's like, oh my god, look at that, it's the biggest like avalanche of negativity in the world, and all of a sudden our universe is screwed. So it'll be interesting. I've got my fingers crossed. I loved what came before, not consistently throughout the DCU, but definitely with the TV side, whether it was Arrowverse related or outside, external. I forgot the word, externally. I think I was going to say something weird, but anyway, externally outside of the Arrowverse, I'm a big fan of most of the TV stuff, just because it's a format that I think works best when you're adapting comics, because like an issue is almost like an episode, or like an issue could be like 2 episodes or whatever it is. But I'm excited to see what they do next. But it will be interesting to see if the problems from the past, both positive and negative, affect what comes next. Which some people might just, people like mentally might just do a clean slate, which I would recommend. Just do a clean slate. Was do a bit of a purge of what came before, at least the negative stuff, and just jump into the new one with a bit of a fresh view of things. But it'll be interesting to see if that's the case with a lot of people. That's how I'm trying to do it. Though I still wish it was being done differently. I'm not the biggest fan of how the DC universe is going to be handled. I wish there was a bit more of I wish it was a bit more tangible. But it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. But we'll wait and see. So fingers crossed it all works well. That's for us to wait and see over the next from now like 6 years, but hopefully the next 5+ years after Superman Legacy comes out next year. So we'll wait and see. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various thoughts and everything we went over. And your opinions on this stuff. Always curious to read. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. And I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.